Hi, Tara. Welcome to the Retail Whore podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
You too. It's so exciting because you and I both attended the Ultimate Product Party. And I have to say, I came away both so inspired with what I was learning, but so inspired from people's stories and what they're creating. And
Yeah.
you and I met the first day, and I was so enamored by what you have created that
You're so
the
sweet.
first thing I was like, you have to be on the podcast. And what I'm trying to do for the timing of the release of this,
Yep.
which we can talk about a little later, but this is your first showing at Dallas Market Center. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to shift some things around so people can hear this that are going to, because we just had Cole's interview was yesterday.
Yeah, I listened to it. It was great.
I mean, Dallas is the market to be at. And I'm so excited for you to do that show. So before I talk more about what's going on, you tell us about yourself and your brand.
Awesome. Yeah, well, it was so great to meet you too. That was such a fun conference. So my name's Tara Thorne. I am a jewelry designer. My brand is Cedar and Cypress. So I am a sign language interpreter by trade. So I tend to use my hands too much and but also Italian. So it comes in all sorts of ways. So I have my degree in American Sign Language. After the earthquake in 2010, I had been to Haiti before. That I should clarify, the earthquake that was in Haiti in 2010. I'd been there before. I have family there that were missionaries, and I decided to move there. I went there to visit and see family, volunteered in an orphanage. A friend of mine from college wanted to really help in some way. So we went down and basically held babies all day and spent 10 days there. And it just totally changed the trajectory of my life. I met some amazing people, and they really spoke just love into my life and truth and the word of God. And so I was like, I am just going to take this leap of faith and move here. So I went back to New York, where I just graduated. We went the summer after we graduated college, and I had a job at the college. Because we went to, I went to RIT, which is Rochester Institute of Technology. So there's a big school for the deaf there, and I had a job there. And I just kind of sold everything and was like, I'm moving to Haiti. And I really wanted to work with the deaf community there. So I had heard that the community had kind of come together in a very high needs community. So they were deaf, blind, and paraplegic community living in a tent city in a very, very dangerous part of Port-au-Prince. But they were given essentially government land to kind of squat on, and they had their tents, and it was all fenced in, so they were safe. So such a vulnerable community comes together like that, and they look after one another. So I became the just went to the community and started meeting people and kind of hanging out there. And the Red Cross was working there, so they were then working with the government to build temporary shelters. So, and then there was a third party that came in that was specifically wanting to work with the deaf community. And so all together, I was kind of the liaison for the community, and we worked with the Red Cross, and we built them temporary shelters. And then fast forward 2 years later, they were all kind of moved, if they wanted to, into permanent homes, because this was a very temporary, you can have this land for 5 years, but it belongs to the government. So they were either allowed to move and be given this permanent home and pay into and have equal ownership of their home, or they were allowed to, stay there and kind of take a gamble on temporary shelters and the government taking it back, or they could go back to maybe where they had their home, but kind of this mountain in Haiti that was badly damaged by the earthquake. It was all these homes stacked. And when it happened, it just kind of slid them all. And so people were very traumatized. And so I did that for like 2 years. And we led mission teams, and I brought people down to Haiti and, worked with them, and did all sorts of stuff, all sorts of different missions with orphanages, with the deaf community, medical missions, eye clinics, both in communities and specifically with the deaf community. And then the last 2.5 years, this is kind of a long way to get to the story, but this is like the fun part, because Haiti was such an amazing place to live and such a huge part of like my journey in my life. The last 2.5 years I taught at an American Christian school. So it was upper class and missionary kids. And I got to be the community, like the community outreach and the student activities director with the kids. So then I went from like American missionaries coming in and working with Haitians to nationals and, upper class Haitians giving back to their own country. And so it was this like 360 like total change, and it was so amazing to see my students giving back to their country. And so it was just great, and I was there for 5 years, and Haiti's a really hard place, and so after 5 years I kind of was experiencing burnout and decided to move here to Minnesota. Had met my long-term boyfriend. We've been together since 2012. We met in Haiti, and he's from here, so we came back here, and I knew I wanted to like be forced to go back to Haiti on a regular basis, not just like, oh, I used to live there and hopefully I'll get there, because then 1 year turns into 2, turns into 3, and you don't go back. So I said, well, I'm gonna start a business. I'm going to start a jewelry company. And what I was doing was I met so many amazing different people that had started companies, jewelry companies or home goods companies. And so I was buying wholesale from them. Haiti Design Co-op, they're really big there. They've got beautiful designs. Papillon Enterprise, she does a lot of clay. She does all of our clay beads. She's one of our biggest partners right now. So I was buying from them and then selling on a website. And
so you were buying, but let me back up for 1 second. What were you buying from them?
So I was buying jewelry, mugs. Papillon makes mugs, mainly like jewelry, and then a little bit of home and gift, and metal art is a really big thing in Haiti. So it's like
the oil drums, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I've seen a couple there's a company that used to be at Temporaries, and they had this amazing booth, and it was so beautiful. Like I still remember, like the Tree of Life was like my favorite, but I have no idea what happened to them.
Yeah, so I know that there is a Haitian man in Atlanta that's in a showroom, and I see his little thing in like the Discovery Lane area when you're walking out to the parking garage, and I've not made it to him, but one of these times I'd like to. Yeah, there's some great like art and home and gift that comes out of Haiti. It's just beautiful.
Wow, I had no idea.
So I was buying and then just selling on a website, which I kind of just made myself on Squarespace, and didn't know and don't know still anything about SEO. It was just kind of like, I got my first order, and I think it was probably my mom or dad. And it's, was very slow. And then I actually got into a store here in Minneapolis. She did a lot of like consignment. And so she was taking 30%, and then I was only making 20%. And I was like, this just it's not working. So I have a really good friend that's Haitian American that was living in Haiti. And I was like, Nikat, do you think you could find me a horn and bone artisan? Do you think you could find me somebody that could make these designs for me? And she was like, yeah, sure, no problem. And so fast forward 5 years, now we have our own jewelry line. We still work with some of those organizations. Like I said, Papillon still makes all of our clay. We've got a whole new series that we've released with them, and we just got a bunch coming from them. And then we have a really strong horn and bone line. So in Haiti, they use every part of the animal. So we do a lot with sustainably sourced horn and bone. Wow. So we, I guess I have on my ring here, for example. So it's like The brass is actually like it's called a bezel, the brass piece, and it's made here in the States. And then we send that off to Haiti and they hand cut the horn.
Wow.
So from cows. So like, think about like the rings of the cows, of their horns. They have this whole process where they put them over fire and they cut them up. And, so we designed that. We've got like, this ring here. This is a popular one.
I love it.
Yeah, so we actually found an artisan group in India and they make some of our brass. We found them at sourcing in Magic. And so work with them. And then
So that's what that section is all about. I had no idea because I'll do Magic, and it's always off in another wing of the convention center. And I've walked in it because it's like, oh, let's go look. And it's like, I have no idea what I'm looking at because it's not like the booths that are down the hall where it's all apparel. It's just, each country has their own booth. So that's what sourcing is.
Yeah, so they set it up great. They set it up by country. So like what country you're working with, like if you want to work with China or India or Egypt. And part of that is different tax laws, different, so maybe Egypt has a lot of incentives, or different countries have incentives versus, just working with China where you get a lot of tax and import taxes and stuff. But they might not have the same capabilities, but it's different in the way that you go in and you have to buy 1,000 of one piece versus, some of them will work with you. But for the most part, it's just bigger. It's like, where those people in Magic go to design and work with their people.
Yeah. Now I understand. Cause I total segue, but
yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah. It's such an interesting, I did not, I'm a sign language interpreter. So I did not kind of grow up in the fashion world and grow up in this, and I'm from a tiny town in upstate New York, a farm town. So, it was also new to me. And actually, when I first moved to Minnesota and I had the company very part-time, I started working for a woman named Darcy, and she owns a big company called Panache Accessories. And she's on Fashion Go and does a great big beautiful booth at Magic, and she does like a lot of the winter hats and scarves.
I've heard of her.
Yeah, she's amazing. And she took me under her wing, and she is like, I give so much of where I am today to her. She was totally my mentor for years and years and years, and knew that I had Cedar and Cypress when I started, and took me with her, and did Magic one time at the Fashion Go booth and let me have a shelf, and just was an amazing mentor and friend to me for a really long time.
I love that. I think everybody needs mentors. I had Fred Siegel. I had a man named Michael Campbell, who both kind of brought me through the world of Fred Siegel way back in the day. So I have to unpack a lot of what you just told us about. I want to get to your jewelry because you have this beautiful story about the beads and the clay and some of the things about it. I want to go back to you deciding you're going to go to Haiti, and more importantly, how your parents ended up. Like, how does one, is it always missionary work? Like, how do you just pick up and decide, I'm going to move, I'm going to sell everything and move to Haiti? Like, that's like, it's a big thing when you move across country, let alone across the other side of the world.
Yeah. So for me, we grew up like Christmas, going to church and that kind of stuff. But I never really had a deep faith. And so I went after that earthquake to work at the orphanage, and it wasn't mission based. It was just hold some babies. And a lot of people that end up going, I would say 90% are mission based. And it was over the course of that 10 days that, like I said, people really like spoke into my life. And I really feel that I found God on that trip, and was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go all in. And if they say like, you have to trust God and you have to have faith, like, I'm just going to do it then. Let's do it. And so I jumped in, and I think it was helpful that I had family there. My aunt and uncle were there. It was helpful in like getting me there for the first couple of weeks. And we early on had a split and we no longer speak. And so that was hard. And I think that was harder on my parents, you know, knowing that I had family there, but it wasn't really, but I quickly met a lot of really amazing people that became your community. And I think that's what, you know, if you're going to do something like that, you can't just show up to Haiti and like hail a taxi and be like, take me to an Airbnb. Haiti,
yeah, that's kind of why I'm like where I'm going with this. Like,
yeah. So having family there was huge, but there's a lot of different, you know, mission communities that you could connect with for a place like Haiti. I've also been to El Salvador, and it's kind of the same thing where I wouldn't, if I didn't know the group that I'd gone with and have the right people on the ground, you know, it's not like Tulum. Like Tulum is what used to be that way, but now it's just like you can show up, you know, book an Airbnb online.
Yeah.
You can book an Airbnb in Haiti, but I really wouldn't recommend it. But there's so many great like organizations that work there. To be very honest, nobody's really traveling to Haiti right now because about a year ago, our president was assassinated. And so it's lawless. And then all the gangs have risen up. So we've got these rival gangs. So I haven't been to Haiti since last January. And it was at a time when the gangs were kind of kept at bay and COVID was kind of helping to keep them at bay. Yeah. And it wasn't, you know, but it wasn't these big outbreaks. So I felt safe and confident going. But then since then, I haven't felt good about it because when I go to Haiti, that means I'm at a guest house and I'm putting them like in danger, and I have a driver and I'm putting him at danger. Like getting to and from the airport isn't the safest right now. So I'm just not confident in going for the people that I would have to put in danger. But also my business is there. So I'm going to have to go soon.
There's so many questions I have. When you decide to pick up your life and move there, what does one pack when you're flying across to your new home that you don't know how long? And two, what does that, well, there's three questions. What does that flight look like? And three, what is the weather and the climate there? I'm assuming it's very hot.
Okay, so packing, gosh, I must have taken 2 suitcases because that's what I was allowed. So I took whatever clothes, a couple of books.
Like, how do they give you like, this is what you need, like how to pack?
No.
It seems like you're somewhat blind going.
Yeah.
I guess I need
for moving there. Yeah. But when I would bring mission teams down, I mean, we had a packing list of what to bring, what you don't need, what we're looking for as far as donations. It's very common in Haiti when missionaries come down with 3 suitcases. And then 1 or 2 are just supplies, peanut butter and food and medical supplies and all sorts of stuff that gets donated. And there's pros and cons, and that's a whole other podcast. But for me, I knew I would come back. One rule I stuck to, and when I went down, I didn't know how long I was going for. It was like open-ended. It was, okay, I'm going down in August, but I'll be back for Christmas for sure. So I was kind of like, well, I need clothes to get by. Every time I came back, I would bring more stuff. And now for me from New York, now it's like an hour and 20-minute flight from Miami to Haiti.
Oh.
New
York's only a couple hours from Miami.
Yeah, so and you could fly direct, 4-hour flight direct from JFK. So at the time I was living in Syracuse area in upstate New York. So I would go Syracuse, JFK, and then take this 4-hour flight down, or go to Fort Lauderdale, or, either. Both are really big kind of hubs. A lot of like diaspora Haitians live there and travel, frequently back and forth to their families in Haiti. That's very common in Atlanta as well. And the airlines are kind of all switching things around. You used to be able to fly direct from Atlanta. You used to be able to try direct from Minneapolis. Now you can't because those flights weren't full and the gangs. And so then it's kind of pared down a lot. Haiti goes in these ebbs and flows of things are good, things are bad, things are good. And it's bad right now. It's really bad.
I think a lot of third world countries are like that. We went to Nicaragua. The American travel was saying, it's like, I think it's orange and then red. It's like, so we traveled there during orange, and there was civil unrest, and we were told not to land in Nicaragua. We landed in Costa Rica. And this is not for missionary. This is for a vacation.
Right.
So we landed in Costa Rica, and we had people that helped us shuttle us down to where we were going, because we were going way into the jungle, because my husband's a surfer. So everywhere we go is usually a surf location. But it's the third world countries, especially when there's civil unrest, are very scary. And the fact that you still have your business there. So quick question on the weather, because you live in, this is total sideline. You live in Minnesota, and you came from Haiti. And Minnesota, I was there 3 weeks ago. It was the second week of May. It was a couple days before Mother's Day. It was 46 degrees. And I'm like, we had just had 80, 90 degrees temps here. I'm like, what is happening here? But apparently that's what it's like for y'all there.
It's not my favorite. I'm not a winter girl. I love being in the Caribbean for, winter months. I grew up in upstate New York, so a lot of snow, a lot of cold temps here in Minnesota. So Haiti is like a consistent 94. Like 94, 94, 93, 94. Like it's just this consistent. In August, they're going to hit 100, but I think it gets hotter in Vegas. When we go to Vegas for Magic, it felt hotter, and I know there's the whole drive, but I definitely remember like being at the school and watching soccer games, or just like in church, and it just like drips down your back, and you're just like, well, that's just how it is.
And I always marvel that now, like anybody that makes that much of a transition, like such a drastic change in temperature, because all your clothes, like everything in your life is like what you're used to living in. I've gone in 100-degree swing. So like -20 in Minnesota, I get on the airplane and show up in 80 that afternoon, and it's 84. Wow. And that's a huge swing, 100 degrees. So it can be a shock to your system. So talk to me now, because your jewelry line, they're so beautiful. There's a lot of people making bracelets, obviously, but your bracelets and the beads, and the fact that they have little fingerprints on from the people that made them, I think that is what really kind of caught me. So tell me about, and if you have any nearby so you can show
I do.
Tell me about your jewelry, and tell me about the people that make the beads, and how your product goes back to the community.
So we like I said, we kind of have now 2 established. So we work with Papillon Enterprise, and they make all of our clay products, our bracelets and all of that. And then we work with an independent horn and bone artisan. And so I call her my business partner, my good friend Niket, who's Haitian. This is her. And I'm
beautiful.
And she's got a school in Haiti. And so I do a lot for her, and she, reaches out. So he's an independent artisan. And so when I say, I'll send down an order and I'll say I need 100 of this, or 300, then he goes out and he has his community of artisans that he will say, okay, we need this order, next week, and he'll employ people. So we pay a fair and living wage up front. So it's not like I'm saying 10% of everything goes back to Haiti. It's a fair and living upfront wage.
Yeah.
And then we also separately sponsor kids at the school and do different things. You know, BNME is our big horn and bone artisan. Haiti's got going through such turmoil. He hasn't had electricity in 4 months.
Wow.
So he finally said to us, like, I need a generator. Can you loan it to me? And this is the second loan he's asked us for. So me, Kat and I together just, sent him a couple $1,000 because he does work for me and he does work for other people, but it's also like his home. Like, got 4 kids, and I know what it's like to be without power, but I also was never really without power for more than a couple of days. So to go months on end, and my fear was, is this going to make him a target? Like, now you've got a generator, you can hear that. He doesn't live in the best area. But I am so grateful for Miket because I just kind of rely on her opinion. She's, born and raised Haitian. She went to school in Detroit Lakes. But I just say, if you think it's a good idea, let's do it. So we did it. So there's our horn and bone artisan. And then our other is our clay. And so I'll show you a couple of our kind of best sellers here this is our one little bead bracelet. So this is we have, I think, 8 different styles. And so what is unique about them is they're precious stones. We have like this one, a white howlite, just several different options. And they all have one little clay bead that's hand rolled in Haiti. And these are the ones that you can see fingerprints on.
Love that so much.
Yeah, so they're hand rolling them. And so then we send them with these little information cards where you can actually see the artisan hand rolling them. And so it says clay beads are hand rolled in Haiti. Your purchase impacts the life of the artisan who made it and their family, making a difference one little bead at a time.
I love that.
Yeah, these are by far my favorite products. And they've got, like I said, just that one little clay bead. And then they're also, they're made in Haiti as well. So the whole bracelet is also manufactured. So that's a whole other issue. We get the beads, they come here. We send them to, the woman who owns Papillon in Florida, and then she takes them in. She travels in quite regularly. So she takes them into Haiti for us, gives them to her artisans. By the time she's done at the end of the week, brings them back. Fair and living wage, pay them up front for their work that they've done, and that's it.
That's so fantastic.
Yeah, they're not waiting for it to sell before they get paid. They get paid by the piece, and so if they make 1,000 bracelets for us, then they're getting paid for that. And then our other bracelets that use those clay are amalgamate bracelet. So amalgamate is like a mixing of two, I guess I could do this, mixing of 2 elements. So these are the clay beads. And then we mix them with like a half strand of precious stones. So this is like wood opalite, and they all have the clay ivory. So what I wanted to do was mix like, kind of like that first world, which is like the precious stones, with like a third world product. So the clay that's dug up from Haiti, like the ground in Haiti, and then mixed it with this like beautiful, like,
I love the different textures. I think that's what I mean, because like I said, there's a lot of people doing bracelets, but I loved both the story behind it, but I love the texture of both the elements together. I mean, I think it's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I love them.
And then this is, because I'm hoping this is going to air in the next couple weeks. Dallas Market it will be the first kickoff gift show for our industry, and you signed for your first.
Yes.
Is it permanent or is it temporary?
So it's permanent. So we're actually doing the apparel. So it might not air
Okay.
before apparel because that happens like 2 weeks earlier. So we have primarily been in the home and gift shows in Atlanta and Vegas. And that's where I met Kat from Kitty Meow. We were in the same showroom there. And then we kind of thought, maybe we should try the boutique industry. Like maybe we should. And I had a store for 2.5 years. So I'd shop magic. I'd been to Dallas, for my store. And so I thought, let's try the apparel shows. So a good friend of mine owns Thomas and Lean. We kind of like do everything together. So it's like we stay in the same Airbnb. We, go out to dinner. We do all the things together. And it's fantastic. Like to have, a good friend in the industry is so important.
Yeah.
And so we decided to do apparel. So we did Atlanta a couple times. And so I actually flighted Atlanta on the 6th, and we're in the temporaries. We're no longer in the showroom because that was home and gifts. Now we're in the apparel temporaries on the 3rd floor. And then I'll fly right from Atlanta straight to Dallas.
Oh, welcome to the gift show circuit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
And we have a new showroom there. So we will now be open for all of the gifts or all of the apparel shows. And then kind of see the traffic as far as like the gift shows and the overlap there, and probably be open for some of those. We are right next to, are you familiar with the Boutique Hub?
I know of them. I actually just joined them so I could listen to
Yeah.
the conversation and be part of the community. But I know they have a big booth there, or a big showroom.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah, they have a showroom. So we are right next to them. So if you go to the hub, we're right there. It's called Goldn Showroom. So it's a couple of us women that have created these friendships. And so we're excited to see how it goes. We did the temporaries in the April crossover. It was like home and gift and apparel.
Yeah.
And it was okay. It was slower traffic. I think everybody was kind of like, what's happened? But
I think this round of shows is going to be really, because everybody's business has boomed. I mean, really, honestly, like everyone's business has increased so much that I think that all the buyers are now chomping at the bit to get back to the shows, to touch and feel and see. And I never really stopped doing them. I mean, even like when they had a mini show, or it was the first show Vegas reopened with, and it was like there was no one there, but I was like, I need to go and see and touch the stuff. And it was challenging, but it was so nice to see the last Vegas show, how many people had come in and how much bigger temporaries was. But Dallas is going to be like amazing. And so are you in a permanent showroom, or are you in a showroom that only opens up for the show?
Oh, I guess we're one that only opens up for the show, because they have Market Mondays, right?
Yeah, what I was asking Cole is it because a lot of buyers are going to go to one or the other, but if you do the gift show after the apparel show, there are a lot of permanent showrooms that are going to remain, even though it's the weekend, they're going to stay open because they know a lot of the apparel, a lot of people will go walk over and try and see some of these showrooms.
As of now, we're only I'll fly back out because I've been gone for almost 2 weeks, but that doesn't mean that, like, the point of doing this together, we're kind of this collective, so we're non-rep, we'll be the brand owners in there, is that, and I actually opened a showroom here in Minneapolis at our Minneapolis Gift Mart.
That's great. So you're well represented.
Yeah, could try to be. So I write for everyone. So I can sell anybody's line and so that's kind of the goals. We're not necessarily reps for each other, but we're advocates for one another. So I can, take you over, and we came from Best of Show. And we really learned that from Molly. Like, that's one thing that she really hits hard on is, she calls it the golden rule, and, just kind of passing it on. So we really are, we love that, all of us, and we're good friends. And so there's no reason why, I wouldn't share you with if you're a buyer, come in and see my jewelry and the Thomas and Lee bags and the Pink House graphic tees. So, we'll just get more and more in there.
I love that. I mean, I think it's like everybody's supporting each other for a stronger business. I've always said it, and I say it a lot on the podcast, is that there is enough room at the table for
Yeah.
everyone. And I think that only each of us only supporting each other is going to, so that's a phenomenal example that you guys
Yeah.
are doing.
Yeah. There's so much out there that it's like, yes, there's more than enough for all of us. There's more than enough business. Like even Shelly, who makes my jewelry in Haiti, she was like, well, that's yours. And I'm like, Shelly, no, I would love to design for you, because there's like, at the end of the day, I have this business to support artisans in Haiti. Like, that's my goal. I'm so bad because I don't take a paycheck from it. And I know there's that
Yeah,
whole
you should have
thing
learned that
about-
one at class.
I know.
Were you
I
at that
have
round table?
I have other revenue streams that pay my bills. But from this business, because I don't take a paycheck, I can send my artisan $3,000 for a generator, or I can send a mom $300 to put her kids in school for the next 3 months and feed them. So for this business, I don't take a paycheck, and I've gone back and forth, and every once in a while I'll be like, I'm going to do it, and I'll, do it for 2 months. And then I'm like, but I don't need
The true
to.
sense of giving back. I mean, it's you're still giving, that is still a way of
Yeah.
giving back, that it's going back to people making something, earning a fair
Yeah.
wage. I mean, it's still
Yeah.
giving back. Tell me right now, really quick, because this is your side hustle then. So what is your
Well, so
main-
it's my main focus. But my passive income is managing social media. So
Ah,
so I do it for a couple of different people, and we are a generational home. So we live with our in-laws 6 months out of the year, and the other 6 months they go to Florida. So I don't have big bills. I don't have, a fancy car and all this stuff. So I don't really live largely above my means. And anything I do basically is business write-off. If I want to go out to dinner, I'm like, well, I'll just wait till next week, because I'm going out to dinner every night in Atlanta and Dallas.
yep.
So, so I'm kind of, I guess, fine in that sense, in the financial sense. I'm not really a numbers person, so I can't say that I sit down and I'm like, well, to retire, you're gonna have to do this.
Oh, let me tell you, from sitting here at 56, you want to do that.
I know.
Because I did not do that. And now, whatever, it's hindsight, but it's definitely one of those things where it was like, wow, that probably would have been really smart. I'm doing it all now, and you play catch up, but yeah, you if I can give you any advice that has nothing to do with this podcast, but
and my mom says the same thing. You need to save, and I know, I hear you. I know I'm working on it. That's one of my big goals for this year, is start that retirement fund.
Yeah, I started on this dumb little app called Stash, and it takes X amount every week, and it's small enough that it doesn't register. We're like, oh God, there goes the payment.
Yeah.
So it just, quietly goes out of your bank account. And now I'm starting to invest it. And, do I wish I did this a long time ago? Yeah. But what are you going to do? I mean, we still have a long time, of building businesses for, to be able to save, but it definitely, I really wish I took people's advice and they told me when I was younger.
I know, it's another one of those action items from, just add it to my list from the product, party.
I have to ask you, since we're hearing, because a lot of people from the product party are going to be on, what was your biggest takeaway from the event?
I think my biggest takeaway was, and even though I led a roundtable, so I didn't get to hear them all, but in the breakout, listening to Allison about marketing and kind of reaching out. And, she mentioned Harrow, help a reporter out, and the importance
Mhm.
of that. And I actually hired a PR firm. And so I'm kind of, seeing how that does. Nobody I've talked to has ever had a positive experience with a PR firm. So I'm giving it a shot and trying to get my own experience. And then I think I really kind of want to take some of what Allison had to say and put that into action, just reaching out and getting into the gift guides and
Yeah.
some of that stuff.
Yeah,
So
you as a presenter, it was great that you guys were able to go and listen to other
yeah,
people talk as well. Like all of us could move around. I mean, the event for people that are listening was there was main speakers and then there was breakout tables, and everybody came with these amazing like strengths of SEO
yeah,
and money. I mean, and Women in Wallet is a great, we're having her on as well. I mean, we have so
yeah,
many great people lined up from that I think
yeah,
is going to speak to the retailers, for like even more and beyond hearing everybody's stories and what they've created and how they've
yeah,
created them. I think that the lessons of what everybody brought to those tables, like, is so worth broadcasting it out from here.
yes. Yeah, there was some great stuff. And I think one other thing I kind of took for that was I love networking and connecting people and doing all that. And I think that that was my first kind of like conference or networking event in that
Too.
capacity. So I think that I network so much at market, and I really want to like kind of lean into that a little bit and make those markets really strong networking events and kind of like double, you know, piggyback them on each other. Like I'm paying all this money to go to market anyway, so let's really make it worth it and, network with some really great people.
That's a great idea. Well, I mean, it's such a great opportunity, and
Yeah.
I said this is something. It's very weird when you get to the shows because people get very. It's the same thing. I don't want to share my information. People get very like. It's not like you can walk over to someone like, "Hey, I'm Michelle. I have a podcast, or I do merchandising," or
Yeah.
everybody's very. You're with your rep, but everybody's very kind of to themselves. And I so wish that more of us would network and talk to each other
Yeah.
within the showrooms when you're standing there like, hey, did that work for you? I have a
Yeah.
store here. Like, I would love to hear about your experience with this. And it's very funny that it does not happen very often. So I love the fact that if you're going to start this movement, I'm all
Yeah.
for it, because I think it is so, and community is so important, and that meeting each other and sharing things is part of community that
Yeah.
a lot of us, I mean, a lot of us, all of us need, and especially female entrepreneurs.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, I mean, you said it already, like there's enough room at the table for all of us. And, there's certainly, we can help each other out. And, Missy's really good at this. Missy from Twisted Wares. She
I
is
love her.
so like just kind in that way. I think she's intimidating for people to approach because she's got, her pink hair and she's always dressed so pretty. And I was intimidated by her, but now, I mean, last time I was in Dallas, I stayed at her house. Now we're great friends. But she's so she wants to help. Like she wants to give advice and she wants to help people, like myself, and be a mentor. And I think
Love
that
that.
that's great. Yeah, there's so much out there, so much space for mentorship and community together. And
I mean,
yeah,
also is, I feel like all it's going to do is make everybody better, but there is definitely something that happens that people are just not open to it. And I don't know why. And I hope that
yeah,
like these conversations start to change how, because I've watched from the outside of watching women with our people we've had on the podcast, and them reaching out to the guest, and now they're following them and they're rooting for
yeah,
them. And it's so important. And I love that you are going to start doing that, because I think it's so needed.
yeah, yeah. I think being by like the boutique hub will help that because they foster that community. And so I think they're trying to foster that community within the boutique community and the buyers. So I think maybe we need somebody to really foster that community with us, as the wholesalers.
Yeah. tell me, I asked 2 questions at the end. Where do you find inspiration is the first question.
Ooh, I try to find inspiration. I'm a very, like, I guess I'll answer it in 2 ways. What the first would be like my color palette is kind of the inspiration of Haiti. So it's a lot of Haiti's got a lot of that red dirt and these green trees. And so I do a lot of like neutrals, but then every once in a while I'll throw in a color pop that's like bright Caribbean, that Haiti's kind of known for. So color palette, I try to kind of look to Haiti, but I'm also very like, I wear a lot of black. So a lot of stuff that I would wear. But inspiration for my products, they just kind of like come to me through trial and error. Like this bracelet had gone through many different revisions. So I can't always say that it's like one thing that, will become, it's not always what it is. Sometimes it takes a lot of trial and error. Which I'm so grateful again for like Shelly for working with me. And sometimes like our artisans in Haiti will just throw out, what about this? And it's like, well, not as is, or yes, as is. So we just kind of try to work with them too and get their stuff out there.
Love that. And the last question is, where do you see cedar and cypress in 10 years?
Oh, well, to be honest, with a steady paycheck for me.
Good
So
girl.
that would, if I know that I can, take a steady paycheck from it, and it's also doing those give back still, and still has its roots, then I'll know that we've, have made it. I have sort of like my ideal stores that I want to be into. Evereve.
Do tell.
Have you heard of Evereve?
No.
So it's a large kind of boutique chain, and she actually started here in Minneapolis, so she's local, but she's all over the country now. And so they're really one, and they've got a kind of a give back undertone to them, and woman owned, and so they're probably my big one. But I just think continue to support our artisans in Haiti. And Bienami has been building a home. He, saved a little bit each time we paid him, and he bought land and has built a home over the last 7 years since we've started. And all of his kids are in school, and he's got these tools that every time, he gets a certain amount, he'll buy a tool and he'll send it to me, Kat and I, and, oh my gosh, thank you. And so I think, we've, we're not changing the lives of, hundreds of thousands of, all of Haiti, but we're doing it kind of one person at a time. And I think that
time.
Yeah, for sure. So
thank you so much for your time. I'm so excited to see your journey. I'm so grateful for this friendship that we forged. And I really, honestly, I can't wait to watch you go through the show season for one. So hopefully your own stories, but yes, I can't wait to see you grow. I'm really excited for you. And I think you're doing amazing work. And I'm in awe.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Like I've been listening and like prepping, and now, I'm hooked on your podcast, and I just love
thank you.
All of what you're sharing too. So thank you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much.